Hello everyone, welcome back to the Split Rock Mining Company. We're up here at Gunflint Junction, north end of Vermilion Yard, and I need to add a caboose track for the mine run cabooses, and I need to build it off of this track here and extend back towards the wall. And I'm going to show you how I build a switch without using a fixture and just a pencil and some paper and draw on that for my guide. Very simple process. Blank sheet of paper, some masking tape, make the paper act as a hinge. I will trace over the top of the rails, and I will trace in a diverging route using flex track. Here you see I've traced the actual route, just rubbing the pencil on the rails. And then here you see I've made marks where the rail joiners are. That's where I will create the end of the switch. And now I've got a piece of flex track to show the diverging route. I've tacked in one end. I'll hold that down. And the tape using as a hinge, I can flop this back over and trace over the diverging route and at least get where the frogs and the points go. And here you go. You can see where the frog will be. I can see where the points need to go. And I will use this to build my caboose track. So here we are at the workbench. I've got some spikes, some fast track switch ties for code 83, PC ties. I've taped my drawing down to a nice sheet of homosote. I've got some needle nose pliers, some rail nippers. So now I'm going to cut the ties and place them in strategic locations. And here you can see I have most of them in place. I've started spiking them down. At the end of the switch, to keep them engaged, I've got the two where the switch stand will go and the switch throw. And here I have them all spiked in. This will change later as I'm building it, which is nice. You can adapt. But you can see I've got 4 spikes per tie, and then we're going off to the end because we're going to show the diverging route and the main route where they split back to regular ties. Now we're going to get out our Fast Track's point forming tools and our frog helper fixture, and we're going to file the rails down. We'll make it about a number 5, and here you can see we have filed down our code 83 microengineering rail, and the tip is a little weak. We'll cut that off and trim it up. Here we are fitting it in the fixture, and you'll notice as I slide, the one rail moves. You don't want it to move. You want them to put them together where they just fit. Exactly like that. At our Fast Tracks flux, fill in that in. We're going to use a lot of solder to make this strong. This is the most important part of the switch. And here we have it all soldered. Our Fast Tracks fine solder will point forming tool. That's not kind of nice for a little weight. Holds it down and pluck it out of there. And you can see we got a nice, perfect frog to start working on this switch. Here is our frog tacked into place, a couple of solders in there, and it's perfectly aligned with the rails we drew, and everything hinges on the frog. The frog must be obeyed, so you always want to build inside out. So now we'll start working on the outside stock rails, and for this we will need our little red Sharpie, and the rail we matched up to where the joint's going to make, and then we're going to mark this red in here because we're going to use another Fast Tracks tool, the stockade, to make a notch for the points to fit in. And here's our stockade, code 70 to 83. We've drawn with the Sharpie on the rail, and what we're going to do is remove the bottom webbing of the rail so the points fit right in there. And so you slide this into the stockade. It actually goes in upside down. and then you match up the red markings and file away. But you file at an angle. Here you can look on the right hand side, it's equal to the stockade and then bevels out to a full length webbing because you do not need to remove all of the parts. So this is important. Make that nice and smooth. Then you remove that and then you fit that notch exactly where you want the points to be. And now we get out our favorite tool, the NMRA gauge, and we're going to gauge the track. We got micro-engineering 3-point gauges. Fast Tracks make some beautiful ones too. And we've got it at the end. And now we've tacked it down. Here you can see 2 outside rails. We've notched them both. We've used our micro-engineering gauges. We've used the NMRA gauge to accurately put the track in place where the points are going to go at the end joints here. That's all soldered in. But in the middle here is not, because that's the genius of this, is we have not attached that, and then when we put in the points, we can flex it. Next comes the point rails. We have our Fast Tracks point form tool here. Put a rail in there, tighten her down, and we filed it, and that slides out. Now, you have to remove portions of the ends. It's too flimsy, and I'll show you that because it's even split. We want some nice metal. Here we've bent it back to where there's enough metal in the rail to make a nice point. We're going to cut that. And here it's cut. You can see the excess. We used our rail cutters and then we filed her smooth, and now we have a nice strong point that every wheel will roll over properly. We use this little Fast Tracks files, and now you see the point fits right in that notch. And then this rail is long enough, and we will bend it to form the inside guardrail along the frog. And we were going to cut a notch, and so we marked the rail here with a awl. And I will show you, we'll cut a nip and bend it. Watch this later because I messed up. This is a mistake. So now you see that I cut the notch, and I will bend it along to match the main route and then file it down. And here it is, soldered in. We used our gauge. It's in there, and you can actually see for a little bit where I cut the wrong notch and had to redo it. But the point fits in there, flops in there just nice. And then we use our point form tool to do the other point. And this one's curved a bit. Bend it with your fingers. We filed it. We cut off the excess. It fits in there. We've notched it and bent the guardrail. The guardrails are a lot longer than they should be, but that doesn't matter. I kind of like that. And we filed down the edges so nothing picks at the wheels. And that will fit right in there, really nice and handy, and form the other point. And the last rails we add are the guardrails. We cut a couple different rails. You can see them down here. We bend them with our little needle nose pliers, and we file the edges, use just a regular file, and cut down any sharp objects that the rails might catch. One will be a little curved. You'll have to watch that. And we'll put those in right across from the entire frog, and we will use our NMRA gauge to show the spacing in there, which you want to get correct. And here we have them all soldered in. We have a neat little micromark acrylic car. You can look down and see if anything is catching, and it just rolls through there so nice. There's the gauge, and the top of the gauge has the spacings that you need for the rails. The last thing we solder in are the points. You want to have the spacing right. We'll use the NMRA gauge. And here we are. We got the throw bar in there, and you can see they go back and forth. They fit in tightly, and I love using this Fast Tracks file to make the points just as sharp as I can. You want to file that edge so everything just rolls through there so smooth. It's a little difficult to throw because the switch is spiked down and there is some tension. Now it's time to isolate the PC ties. I got my Sharpie out. I mark the ties where I'm going to cut them. I mark the rails where I'm going to cut them. And this is where I had an issue. And I did not like where this portion was going to be cut. So I added another PC tie and moved the cut beyond the frog. I did not want to cut through the frog. That would be a mess. But each one of these little red marks is going to be notched. I'm going to use these Dedeco AO thin discs. and a Dremel tool, a little cordless Dremel. Please wear safety gear anytime you use a Dremel. And here you can see it with the cutoff disc. Look how thin that is. That'll be great cutting through that rail, but it's just enough of a gap that you need. And wear your goggles because now let's see how we did on cutting our gaps. We'll get out the old Radio Shack ohm meter. You guys remember Radio Shack. And we should have 0, and we don't. So we have to go back and keep cutting and testing and filing. And we'll check the frog against all the rails and left and right rail. And here we finally have it all cleaned up, and we have it perfectly gapped. So now it's time to clean up. We're going to knock down all these lumpy solder joints here with our wire brush, and then we're going to clean it with some alcohol and that brush. And here we go. You can see what the wire brush did. We pulled up our spikes, and it's knocked down all those solders. You can file away on that. It won't hurt anything, and it makes it look better. You see you have your gaps in the rail. You have your gaps in the PC ties, and all the solder's knocked down, so when you paint it, it'll look great. And here we have it all cleaned up. After we scrubbed it with some alcohol, we'll trim those ties to length in the next segment when we show you the install. But we have a nice, shiny, hand-built, workable switch, and it'll be going in for our caboose track in Vermilion Yard, and that will be the next video. And then we'll slide wood ties under there and paint it. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you subscribe and like and send some comments my way. Looking forward to more of these if you want. Talk to you all later.